Alrighty. Okay. Welcome everyone to Inspire Me Forward, and welcome to our fourth edition or fourth episode. And we are so happy to be here once again to be inspired. Our guest today is Kelly Jones from Colorado. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
And before we jump right in, I wanted to share something. This is something that has been coming to me for a few days now. It's sort of been percolating, and it just formed itself last night. So I'm going to read it because I don't have it memorized yet. Getting a little older, memorizing things takes a little longer. It's called Leaps of Faith, but I've really been sort of mulling around leaps of faith. Like, what does it mean? And what does it what does it look like, and um, how is that? Thanks, Kelly. So without ado, this is part one, and I will post part one, and part two I'll post later on. So again, called Leaps of Faith. It says whether leaps of faith are big, as in 180 switch of direction, where turned around completely and going the other way, or they're small adjustments that might be likened to a fork in the road. But they all add volume, they all add wisdom, and they all add beauty to our lives. But it's the undercurrents and trends that we start to see. Things like what held us back from taking that leap or shifting course? What inspired us to make the change, and what wisdom did we acquire, or lessons did we acquire as we were going along and leaping, so to say? But if we take the small and the big out of the equation, if we take the judgment of the importance of one leap versus another, then we actually see the true heart of courage in all of the leaps. That leap into the unknown, the trust of the outcome, and the final outcome, that looking forward to the future, no matter what, with joy and excitement. And when we share our stories of leaps of faith, we really say to others, "You're not alone." That's really what I think we're saying in all of this, is that you're not alone. And we find a community of explorers that are exploring into which is not yet known, or into the unknown. We're exploring that space. And we all need inspiration. All of us at some time in our life. It might be someone's words and actions. It could be some things, maybe a plant. It may be something's way of being. It could be another's true essence or another's true energy. Any of those things can inspire us in some shape or form. And when we share these inspirational stories, we create this global community, which means we leap together, we catch each other, and we support each other with that love and compassion. And then what we start to do, I find, is we leap more and more and again and again. So I'd like to just leave that, just putting that out into the universe and leaving that there. I have a part two. I will post them together later on. But when I start something like what we're doing here, I always have to mull it around, and it always sort of, I think about some questions about it and all that. So this is just this all coming together just for me, and I hope maybe some of it resonates with some folks here. So let's jump right in. And Kelly Jones, I would love to have you just introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what beautiful animals you have on your property. I know you have many. Yeah.
Yes. My name is Kelly, and I currently live in Colorado. I live on the western slope, which is the opposite side from Denver and Colorado Springs. And I moved here a year and a half ago. I brought with me 3 horses and 2 dogs. And actually, I brought with me 4 dogs, but 2 of them have passed away. Earlier we were speaking about grief, and it's
Mm.
amazing to me how grief and suffering are in themselves a leap of faith, when we choose to be in the moment and to grieve with the loss and to learn from it instead of put it on a shelf and decide that we're going to deal with it later. So I was raised in Texas. I always lived in Texas until the last year and a half. I believe I'm a country girl that was raised in the city. And I got out of the city as fast as I could, but that meant I was in the city when I was young, and I learned all kinds of rules that I was supposed to follow. Lots of shoulds in my life when I was growing up. I was the oldest of four, so my parents experimented on me. Is this a good thing what to do or not? And then of course, being the oldest, there's always that pressure. You've got to make straight A's, and you're going to have to run for student council and be all of the things. And so I started out really early with that, like I talked about in my introduction, that perfectionism and trying to control the inside by controlling the outside. Had emotions, I didn't know what to do with them, and so kept myself very busy, therefore. Related to horses, because I know some of the folks on this call are horse people. I have been a student of the horse as long as I can remember. My great grandfather gently set me up on the back of his old gray plow horse. And from that moment on, it was a love affair. Like I said, I lived in the city. There was no possibility I was ever going to have my own horse growing up, but I tried everything I could to be around them as much as I could. We would go to the beach and I would see hoof prints on the beach, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's a horse. And drive on the I still do it. Drive on the highway. Look, oh, horses, horses. My parents very confused, no idea where I got this from. They had no affiliation towards horses at all. But interestingly enough, all sides of my great grandparents were horse people. So it skipped
Mm,
several
skip the
generations.
generation.
Yeah. Worked at a barn, did all of that, everything that I could. And then I was blessed. I got my dream in 1999. We moved into an old, dilapidated, and neglected farm north of Austin, Texas. And I spent the next 21 years there, 22. Actually, I moved in 2021. And in it being in that environment and with those incredible animals changed my life. And so my leaps of faith oftentimes center around the fact that these horses taught me from a young age um, to be me, because
Mm-hmm.
they saw me,
Nice.
when a lot of other people didn't.
Mm.
So that's
Sounds like
kind
they're
of
part of
me.
that global community.
Yes.
They catch us and support us, and
They do. They
uh,
hold me accountable. They really
mm,
hold me accountable. I have a mare, and she's 23 years old. I've had her since she was 4. And I always know when I'm struggling that if I go outside with her and stand with her, that she will let me know.
mm,
Nope,
yep,
you are not here. You need to come back, or she's gonna really move into me. So
yeah. Honest 100% of the time,
they
whether we
are.
like it
They
or
have
not.
no
Absolutely,
agenda,
absolutely. Yeah,
no agenda.
yeah. Just be real. Just be real.
Yeah.
Well, then let's jump right into a leap of faith. And I know we've sort of
Okay.
talked about is
Well, I would say that
I was gonna say a
is
big
what?
a big leap of faith, but if we tangent off into small ones, that's great too. So
Okay,
the floor
perfect.
is yours.
Well, I tell you what, have spent ever since you and I talked about this, and I've been watching your speakers and being so inspired by them. I have really like, what were my leaps of faith? And the
Mm-hmm.
one that I wanted to avoid was the most painful, but it's the one that I think was my biggest. It changed the direction of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm gonna set this up a little bit. So the leap of faith was divorcing my husband of 10 years, and that was in 2007. But before then, following along the path that I mentioned when I was talking about growing up, was that checking of the boxes, that we're I was told, which was a wonderful message, that you are strong and you're intelligent and you can do anything you want to do, and and so I set my sights on the stars, and the only setback for me therefore was that I was setting my expectations probably beyond reality
Mm-hmm.
for myself. So I graduated from high school, went to college, graduated from college, got a job right out of college, Which I'll tell you a little side note. Honestly, when I was in my junior year of college at the Thanksgiving table, I announced to the family, I am dropping out of college. I'm going to go work at a ski area in Colorado and I'm going to herd cattle in the summer. Very matter of factly. And that, yes, that's the look that was on everyone's faces at the table. What? And so I didn't. I stayed following the rules, stayed within the regulations,
Yeah.
graduated from college, got a job, there early, stayed late, got promoted, did all the things I was supposed to do. Just really buried myself into this idea of me
Mm-hmm.
and the outside. I'm still decorating the outside of me. Remember, I didn't know how to tend to the inside of me, so I was tending to the outside of me. So all of my friends were getting married. They were all having kids. I was 27, and my grandfather literally said to me, "You're an old maid. Come on, Kelly. What are you doing?"
Oh.
And so I met my husband, charming, the I mean, lit up a room, everybody's favorite, so funny. Swept me off my feet, 6 month courtship, engaged, married. And I started to kind of get a little hint that something was wrong pretty quickly. But I kept making excuses. He's nervous. He's, nervous for the wedding. He's nervous because now we're married. And then it became pretty clear that something wasn't meeting my expectations.
Mm-hmm.
There was not kindness. So my daughter, I got pregnant with my daughter, and at 18 weeks, I went into preterm labor with her. And the obstetrician that I was going to chose to try to save her. And so we did. And for the next 5 months, I laid in bed on my left side. And so I got to check out from my suspicions that something was going on because my husband became incredibly, attentive to my every need. Had my
Mm-hmm.
daughter, loved being a mom, totally changed my life. Talk about another little leap of
Mm-hmm. Oh,
faith,
absolutely.
not going back to work, right?
Yeah.
Abandoning that role
Yep.
that I had set for myself of being a career woman and running a company one day, total 180. I'm going to be a mom. Would try to go back to work and couldn't. So we moved to Austin. We bought my little farm outside of Austin, and things were still not right. And so I kept doing the dance. A lot of times when I'm working with clients doing my coaching, they'll be in the round pen, and I'll say, why don't you just let that horse know that you'd like to spend some time with it a little bit, will it walk over and spend some time with you a little bit closer to you? And so they dance, right? They dance
Mm-hmm.
around the round pen. They're like, I'll put myself closer, I'll get further away, I'll move over to the left,
Yep.
I'll move over to the right. And to me, that's exactly what I was doing. I was changing my hairstyle, I was changing my clothing, I
Yep.
was getting a different volunteer job at the church. If I
Yep.
thought if I just changed one more thing, he would be nicer to me. If I would
Mm-hmm.
just do this, he would love me. All of those things I kept telling myself that it was me and I
Mm-hmm.
must need to change something on the outside so that I can be better on the inside. And so I was the church lady. If there was a committee, I was on it. I was writing curriculum. Meanwhile, I had my son and was really caught up, and it all came crashing down. My husband had an affair
Mm-hmm.
with the worship leader of the
Mm-hmm.
church. So this safe institution, right? It looked good on
Yeah.
the outside and it was supposed to be safe, turned out not to be. And it really rocked my world.
Yeah.
So I continued to do what I was supposed to do. I made cupcakes for the birthday parties. We went to marriage counseling. I did everything I was supposed to do for the
Mm-hmm.
marriage counselor. I did all my homework. I did it all on time. I met all my assignments. I'm still caught in this thing. This was, going on 9 years.
Yeah.
And then, and I recognized about 7 years along that I needed to fight back. I started to get very anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the therapists I worked with once told me, Anxiety is your body's emergency brake. It
Hmm.
is saying, pay attention, stop and pay attention. And
Mhm.
so when I started fighting back, of course, things got worse because, as I know now, I was married to a narcissist and control was the game and gaslighting. And
Mhm.
I had never experienced that before. So I really didn't understand what was happening. But about year 7, I started fighting back. Things got worse. Um, this was after the affair. And then the affair kind of gave me a get out of jail free card, really, because I was supposed to stay married because I was a good church girl and good church wife and church
Mhm.
mom and had to stay together for the kids. And I went to Galveston one day with my friend from high school who I graduated with, my very best friend in the world. And she met me there in this hotel room. And guess who she was expecting? She was expecting me, the me that I had been in high
Ah,
school.
gotcha. She knew before. Yes.
She knew me before. She knew my spirit. Even though I was following the rules,
Mm.
I was still kind of a rebel. You know, my grandmother told my mom once, you need to break her spirit.
Really?
Yeah, my mom didn't, thankfully.
Yeah.
But, you know, still she knew me like that, right? One day we just decided to be twirlers, she and I. We had no training, right? And then we just decided to try out and be twirlers and we made it. So that's the kind of who she expected me to be and I wasn't, right? And so she
Oh.
met me there. I spent some time with her and I woke up from my trance. I woke up from my coma, whatever you want to call it, that disassociated state,
Mm.
and went home and asked for a divorce. And as you know, as I was asking for the divorce, he was, no, 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 and I left to give him time to process and get out of the house. I went to a grocery store. And I went to the grocery store I'd been to 100 times. And I walked in the door to the grocery store and I thought to myself, this is such a vivid memory for some reason.
Mm.
Wow, look at the lighting. It's so bright. And the aisles are so wide. And look, people are meeting my eyes and smiling at me. And they're so
Mm.
friendly today. And then it hit me like lightning.
Mm.
It was me. I'm the one that had changed, that I was alive again, that courage and shift in me while I was with my friend had woken me back up again. My soul again was breathing, and it was this little shimmer. It wasn't what it
Mm.
was, but it was there. And so I kind of likened it to when I considered on a drive home, from the high school reunion. I was scared to death, but around the curve that I had just chosen, it was bright, right? I could
Mm.
see that there was hope there, but where I was, it was
Dark.
dark, and I didn't see if I stayed on this path,
Yeah.
it was going to get any better. And so that
Mm.
was my biggest leap of faith, was going away from what I had always thought would be safety, right?
Yeah.
What I'd always thought would be the, I don't know, the thing I was supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
To be a good
Absolutely.
girl.
Well, yeah, your comment of breaking your spirit, that really strikes with me. Is like, and that relates to me with the horses. Is in
Exactly.
the work we do with the horses, it doesn't, and their true spirit come is being, just allowing them to be a horse, and just allowing, so you're with your friend, just allowing you that weekend of just being you.
Yeah, it woke me up one night when after I talked to you and decided to do this. What woke me up was watching people desensitize horses, and they
Mm-hmm.
just disassociate. And
Mm-hmm.
what if we were to let them be curious?
Yeah, yeah,
What if we were to let them explore like they get to do in the wild when there's something
exactly.
curious? They go
Yep.
explore it, right? They may run away from it a little bit, but most of the time they stand there and stare at it and try to see if they can see what it smells like and what does it sound like.
Mm-hmm.
And then they slowly inch towards it, right? Like
Mm,
I'm going to go figure out what that is. And to me, and when I rescue horses and when I watch the horses that of my friends that I've rescued, the light comes back in their eyes when we let them,
mhm,
like you said, when we let them be horses again. And I
absolutely.
think that as humans, we're
Mm,
so capable of the same thing with each other.
yeah, yeah. It- Did you start to see? So you talked about the grocery store, and I that's amazing. That and I think many people can relate is that when we change our energy, and when our energy changes, maybe we didn't truly know we were changing, but when our energy changes, life changes around us,
It
and it's
does.
those synchronicities that we start to see. Were there other maybe synchronicities that started to sort of come your way, and you're like, oh, and maybe inspired you that sort of those little another flick of a switch, another flick of a switch, and
There were lots of switches that came on, thank goodness. Um, because this is one of the reasons I wish I had had the courage sooner. Um, when I asked for a divorce, my son was 5. I can't remember his childhood.
mm-hmm,
I was so disassociated. I'll look at pictures and I can't remember it. So the synchronicity for me was that I remembered from then on. I remembered my children's activities at school. I remembered
mm,
to take care of myself and to take care of other people. Remembered birthdays, and I became so much more alive at the ranch where I was. I would allow myself the opportunity to be still, right? I
mm,
knew I needed healing, and it was just this intuitive need that I had to seek nature, to seek to be outside, to seek the rhythm that was there of the birds and the
mm,
wildlife and the grass and the wind, and would find myself chasing thunderstorms. Like
mm.
in Texas,
Yeah,
the
yep,
thunderstorms were huge.
I bet.
And instead of cowering down in the room, I was out the back door
Oh, that's awesome.
bolting up the
Yeah.
hill, just I wanted to smell the rain. I wanted to feel the breeze and feel the rain on my face. And I was so hungry. My nervous system was so hungry
Yeah.
for that kind of input. And so the synchronicity was this beautiful dance. I switched from dancing like around the outside of me. And I
Mm.
started dancing inside of me. I
Oh, that's
wanted
beautiful.
to dance.
Yes. Yes.
I felt it again, joy that had been
Yes.
gone for so long.
I feel like a cheerleader. Yes,
I know.
yes.
It
I,
was very inspiring
oh
for
yeah.
me to see that about myself. I didn't think I could be me. I thought I had
Mm.
to be that other lady.
Well, and what I don't hear is in your recounting of this is I and it's beautiful is I don't hear blame and I don't hear shame. I hear you just saying I found me and I went forward. I carried that forward. I went forward with that.
Yep.
Um and in telling it, yeah, like it's just there's this beauty in that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's blame and shame have no place in our lives.
no.
They are negative energies that take away from our positive energies,
Mm,
and I tell folks this all the time. That's what we have in this world,
yep.
right? Is our positive energy, our perspective, our openness, our
Mhm.
surrender to each other and the connection that we all share.
It so reminds again a synchronicity here is yesterday I posted with a picture from Carrie Lake's episode, the very first one, and it was let others take care of you in times of openness and vulnerability. Let others care for you, and that's what that's amazing. Like that's what I'm hearing here is you let the
Yes.
storms take care of you. Let nature and the horses and others take care of you and lift you
And which
up.
was hard because,
Yeah,
for my whole life, it was take care of yourself, be
yeah.
very independent, don't ever depend on anybody else.
Mm,
And that was, that breaking free from that lie, because that is a lie, we're we need each other. It's not, and that's what the
Yeah,
horses teach us,
yeah,
right? When they're hardwired for healthy relationships. And if we
mhm,
let them, they will teach us how to do the same,
exactly. And
how
they're
to
there
be
for
in
us.
collaboration, right? And
Exactly.
how we have conflict, but how do we have healthy conflict?
Sure. Um, yeah. Wow. Just sitting in all that for a bit. There's such thank you for sharing that. Number one.
Oh,
That's
you're welcome. It
I
was,
know it was took a lot of heart of courage to share. And um I think by sharing that, there are a lot of hearts will be inspired to open up. So thank you
if
for
just,
sharing that.
yeah, if just
Yeah.
one person knows that they're not alone,
Yeah.
that the struggle is real, and no matter
Yeah.
where you go and no matter how you try to hide, you're always right there.
Yeah. Absolutely. What were some of your I don't want to put you back into the situation, but maybe talking about what were some of your biggest fears at that time? Like what was some of the oh, if I do the like you can sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can see you talked about a curve, turning around, like putting your blinker on and coming around from
Yeah.
darkness to light. But in that moment of being back here in the darkness, what were some of your fears in there? Like,
I think the biggest fear was my perceived identity. Strangely enough, I didn't know who I would be if I wasn't a wife, who I would be if I wasn't
mm,
married. You know,
yeah,
our society is, or was, it's better now, but it was really a lot around, especially in a church, couples, married couples. And I wasn't sure, all my friends, I guess they thought affairs and divorce was contagious because they all left. So
mm-hmm,
it was like, well, who am I now? And I needed that question. I needed that question anyway. I was afraid of failing financially.
mm-hmm,
I fought tooth and nail to keep that ranch. So my children would grow up there. And it's like, how do I take care of this by myself? I've got
mm-hmm,
these two little kids. It's just me, 15 acres, and I was probably had 12 to 15 horses on site at the time.
yeah, yeah,
How was I going to survive? Was this the right thing to do? Was I being rebellious?
mm-hmm,
But it really felt like I was saving myself. It didn't feel like I was being rebellious. How is this going to affect my children?
yeah,
Not having their dad in the house with them all the time. And honestly, I thought to myself, maybe I think it will be better. They're not going to be in this environment anymore.
mm-hmm,
The environment that I wanted for them was one of predictability and
sure,
unconditional love and a feeling of safety,
yeah,
right? And our energy, my husband and my energy was not safe.
yeah,
It wasn't what I wanted them to look at and think was the way relationships were supposed to work. And so that gave me courage. Um, I I was afraid of what my family would think.
mm, yeah,
Everybody gathers at your wedding and they all tell you, no matter what, work through the hard times. I was afraid of the judgment
yeah,
of the people of, are you, not following, the tenets of the church. That was a
yeah,
big one for me because of and
for
then
sure,
at that time there was a lot of guilt around that.
yeah, yeah. I would imagine, yeah. So you turned the corner. You put the blinker on, you turned the corner, and there was like, what was the feeling in that? Not necessarily the thoughts, but what was that? What was the feeling?
The sensation was, it was as if this warm light was coming from my feet and it was slowly coming up my legs and
Mm,
up into my heart and across my shoulders. And it was just this feeling of safety, even though there was nothing guaranteeing my safety
mm,
at that time. There was no financial safety in my mind. There was no idea what it was going to look like having to juggle everything, but I felt like for the first time I couldn't even remember safe
mm,
because my essence was back online.
yeah,
My
yeah.
intuition was back online,
Oh, good point. Yeah.
and so I think my nervous system finally felt like it could get like, okay, now I'm going to get like a feel for what's going on around me now because I was disassociated for so long. I starved my nervous system to death.
Mm-hmm.
It needed to get, I call it a bead. It had to figure out where I was in space and was I still in danger. And when I
Mm-hmm.
went to the grocery store, for some reason, my nervous system stopped and took note.
Isn't that something,
It
eh?
was amazing. Yeah,
And
it
that
was, and
sticks with you.
it was very strange. So
Mhm.
now when I work with clients and they tell me that they have that feeling, I know exactly what it feels like.
Of course, yeah,
And if
yeah.
they haven't gotten it yet, then it really, I'm so passionate about supporting them until they get there
Hmm.
because the strength is there. The
Yeah,
strength, even if nothing changes in your life, even if everything stays the same, if you can wake up,
yeah,
give
exactly.
your nervous system that long drink of water.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Feel that warmth coming up and that light.
Yes.
Wow. Um, you said you made a comment earlier, and it for me it's something that I've been, sort of I see it a lot, like on signs and things, and hear it, but I'd love to unpack it with you. But you were talking about being told you could do anything you want to be or do anything you want to do, but you found like it was that beyond that reality for yourself.
Right.
And from for myself lately, it was about, well, you can be anything you want to be, but is that what is how where does that lie with I can be anything my heart wants to be?
Exactly.
So I'd
It's
love to
from
deconstruct that with you a bit.
I would love that too. I think that all of the messages that we get, and mostly as a young woman, and they say, of course, you spend the first 40 or 50 years creating your ego and the last 40 or 50 years deconstructing your ego. So it's that those messages we get growing up, especially like I said in my intro, women, because we've worked so hard to have opportunities. And I think that the message has been you can do anything you want to do and be anything you want to be, but we approach it from our mind, from the neocortex intelligent part of our being,
Mhm.
not the heart part of our being. And I do believe in my heart that women's capacity for generosity and
Mhm.
nurturing and compassion and strength and
Yeah,
courage and fierceness, we have all of that going on.
yeah,
And it's confusing, right? It's confusing. I want to be fierce, but I want to be gentle. I want to be nurturing, but I want to have some sense of self and independence.
yeah,
And where do we find that balance? And I
yeah,
think that we find it when we stop and we're still
yeah.
and we wake our heart up and then allow our hearts to know that we live in a world that requires us to check off some boxes sometimes, but also we live in
Mhm.
this world that needs that softer part of us.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. That's that
That
balance.
it
That
is a
balance.
balance,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's tricky. It's really,
Yep.
in my opinion, it's really
Mhm.
tricky to be in that space of holding onto the the difference between me and you, for example,
Mhm. Mhm.
our essences and weaving the essence that we have together. I think it was it Greta or Kim that talked about the ropes and the knots?
Greta, yes, and every knot
Greta.
was a leap.
Yeah, and I think that if and what the way that I've heard it before is like a spider web, and we
Mhm.
all are a jewel on the spider web,
Yeah,
and within our jewel, right, is all of this light shining off
yeah.
into all of the other jewels, connecting them,
Mhm. Yeah.
and that's that weaving together, I believe, of
Mhm.
us all learning that instead of having this narrow focus of me, having this
Yes.
wide focus of us and how we all
Yeah.
fit in. And there again, we're going to go back to those horses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
roles. Every
Yeah.
role in a herd is important. Without the nurturer,
Yeah.
the herd doesn't have the congruity. Without the
Exactly.
leader, they're not as
Yeah.
safe. Without the lookout, without, it's just this beautiful weaving together of
Absolutely. Yeah.
who we are.
Well,
And
and I know for myself this year, I in my article I talked about in the magazine. For those that don't know, I published an Equine Leadership magazine. Of course, Kelly was one of our authors. But this time I talked about the collective and the individual, and that animals, horses, because that's our through line for a lot of us here, but not everybody. But animals don't see a difference between the collective and the individual,
No.
but they're equally important.
Yes, and that's
That
hard. That's one of the things that
yeah.
that I think horses do such a wonderful job teaching human beings about, especially in a leadership or team type environment, is that no one is more important than anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Even the leader is not more important than the nurturer. And the horses recognize that.
absolutely, and support it. Yep.
Yeah, and then out in the wild, they have this sense of abundance. They don't fight over things,
Yeah.
right? There's not competition. It's all collaboration for survival, but it is for we us all. Like even
Mm-hmm.
now, the leader of my herd, Lita, she will make sure everybody eats. She
Mm-hmm.
makes sure when I had her at my barn and Texas, and there was 10 horses together. She would stand off, and that's what's so funny. People always think the leader is the low man on the totem pole because they often
Mm-hmm.
don't get involved in anything. They
Yeah.
watch, and the only time that they ever insert themselves into a situation is if they have to,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's always gentle. Most of the time, there's not bared teeth and screaming and kicking. Most of the time, it's a couple of steps, some ears and a nose, and that other horse that's making trouble goes, "Oh, I'm out. I'm sorry."
Yep.
And
Exactly.
if
And that's
we
an
could learn
exactly, and
that.
that's a very indigenous way of of leading, and yeah. Um,
Yeah.
very quickly, I have a friend who is an elder, and she tells the story of some kids at a school, and they had a little chief day, and the children got to be the leader of the class for the day. But what they did, and Karen, if you're hearing this, I love this story, is they would wait till everybody was done. They made sure everybody was fed at lunch, had something to eat at lunchtime. They made sure they were the last one out of the classroom, not the first, but the last one out of the classroom. So saying exactly the same thing that you're saying there, that it was looking after. It was this
Yes.
enveloping of everyone, and so because when we are better as individuals, we are better as a whole. So,
Yes.
oh well, yeah,
Yes. And
interesting, yeah,
she's the most mischievous horse too, even to this day. And that's what reminds me to be playful, right?
yes,
Is she's
yes,
23 years old. She's had such a life, and then she's
yeah,
still this morning when I was putting the round bell out, racing me to the gate to see if she could get out. Like,
exactly, exactly, yeah. Enjoy life too,
uh-huh, she
exactly,
does. And then she lets me know when she's mad at me. You
yeah.
have not been out here long enough lately. You have got to come spend some time with us.
Get back here.
Yeah,
What um I'm drawn here to ask you, is there something you do when you feel off balance? Like when you maybe feel like you're going more towards, oh, I'm sort of feel like I'm sort of going towards the shoulds and the, and must do's. Is there something that like a practice you have or something? I'm just called to ask
sure.
that, how do you come back to this?
I have a couple of things that I do. I walk if I can.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the rhythm of me walking and being mindful about my walking, what my feet are doing, how my legs and hips are moving together with my feet, feeling the breeze and the
Yeah.
sun. That's my number one go-to if I can. If I can't go outside for some reason, or I was house sitting for my daughter the past
Mm-hmm.
week, and she lives in a neighborhood, and so I didn't have, what I'm spoiled with. And I like to breathe. I have breathing exercises that I do. And one of them is I am. And I don't know if you're familiar with that breathing exercise. You
Mm-hmm.
um, get into a posture of stillness, and then I'll breathe in and say I, and I breathe out and say am. And I try to reconstruct that feeling of the lightness coming through my feet. And a lot of that, I love to be outside doing this because it connects me to the earth.
Of course.
And I visualize the roots of the trees underneath me and the rocks and the soil.
Mm,
And I'm connecting to the earth and noticing, the trees over, envisioning the trees over me if I'm inside. And then continuing that I am breathing. And then I'll pick like and then I send the am out through my right arm.
mhm.
And I really become aware of my right arm. And then I go around my body, right leg, left
Yep.
arm, and then my chest. And so I'll feel my chest and specifically breathe into my heart. I
Mm,
am. And it reminds me of I am. I
yeah.
am here on this planet. I am
Mm,
part of this world. And the breathing piece is,
mm,
as you know, is huge. It is something that gives me clarity again. It is
mm,
the thing that stops that trigger, whatever the trigger was,
mm,
which I
mm.
still get. I'm never going to be over the things in my life that cause me stress or anxiety,
Sure.
but I am able to recognize it now, and I think that's the biggest shift
The awareness.
is that
Yeah.
I don't get on down the road before I recognize it. I start to recognize it
Mm,
pretty quickly
I love that.
and can
Yeah.
and start some of that. And then the old go
Yeah.
to, everybody knows the 5 4 3 2 1 is my like, I'm in traffic, I'm freaking out about something, and I need that easy 5 4 3 2 1. Five things I can see, four things I can hear, three
Exactly.
things, and that's my big, like I said, if I'm out in traffic or, I have a weird trigger still is getting lost. And I don't know why
Mm.
that is. I'm still working on that one. But if my GPS doesn't work, I panic.
No, really. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
That's
so
fair. That's
that'll do my 5 4 3. But I better like yesterday I was in New Mexico and
mm,
it took me a different way. And oh my gosh, and I was like, what are you doing,
sure.
Kelly? You've driven here forever. You're not, what
You're
do you
fine.
think's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a
So,
Walmart. You're not going to starve.
so
You know, it
oh,
was
good.
really funny talking myself off that edge, but
Yeah.
it's funny. There's just opportunities throughout
Sure.
the day
Isn't that interesting? Yeah,
to do the
absolutely.
work.
Yeah. There always will be. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You talked about decoration. You talk about decorating outside of me and decorating inside of me. Love that analogy. What can you just give us some more, like just a little deeper on that one? I love it. Just I don't know, for
Well,
that one, it's just this, oh yeah, I'm decorating. No, decorate in here.
yes, yes. I think that's that part of our culture, though. Everywhere we look, we see, you know, are you dressed appropriately? Are you driving
Mm,
the right kind of car? There's always, and then I love, I mean, I love, not really, you deserve those commercials. You
mm,
deserve a new car, right? You deserve, and I just like, oh my gosh, really? Uh, It's that
yeah,
marketing, right? Where we're marketing to
sure.
the intellectual piece. And so I think when we get in touch with ourselves and we have that heart-centered awareness, that those things are no longer appealing. We're not competing anymore.
Mm, mm,
Decorating the outside is about comparing and contrasting with other people,
sure.
even people we don't know that have no bearing on our lives whatsoever, right? We're
Exactly.
still wanting to decorate and make sure our house looks good and
Sure.
the drive-by is pretty and the lawn is taken care of and we planted flowers. And are you planting flowers because it gives you joy to
Yeah,
plant the flowers? Are you planting the flowers because you want to win neighborhood of the week? You know?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then when does that stop? Because if we don't stop the decorating the outside, it carries us away
yeah.
because it's never ending. It's a never
Mm,
ending chase after something that we'll never get.
sure,
We'll never reach
sure.
perfection. We'll never be what everybody, what culture tells us, but inside.
Yeah.
If we can breathe and surround ourselves with beauty
Mm,
and feel, when you're reading a book, is it filling you with joy? Is it giving you energy or is it taking away?
sure. Good point. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or a podcast or a television show, all of it. What, like this? Does this thing that everybody carries
Hmm.
around with them, is
Yeah.
this giving you energy or is it taking
Taking it
away?
away. Yeah. Yeah.
And how much
Exactly.
time are you spending with it and
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. Good points. Yeah. Yeah. And that when you're saying that, it's like that walking and that breathing and that joy are all ways to, decorate the inside.
Yes, and we all have it inside of us
Absolutely.
already. We
Exactly.
don't need to go out somewhere else and get it.
Yeah. Oh, such rich conversation with you, my friend. Oh my goodness.
Thank you. You
Um, so it gets easier. Like you find you're taking leaps of faith, but they're getting easier, or do you even consider them leaps of faith anymore, or
Oh,
are they
there's
just
still
bumps in the
leaps of
road,
faith.
or
There's still leaps of faith.
Mhm.
It's different though. I don't feel so lost before I
Mhm.
take the leap.
Oh, okay.
I the leap starts to feel like I am falling fearlessly
I love that.
as opposed to jumping into darkness, right?
Hmm.
Who is it? I think it is Cynthia Bourgeault says that falling fearlessly into
Love
love.
that. Yeah.
And how does that feel? And so like, when I moved from Texas and everybody said, don't move. What? Why are you selling your successful business and leaving all of
Yeah.
your friends? And okay, well, because it was eating me alive. It was
Yeah.
my identity. I had started to make that place who I was. It defined me. 10
Hmm.
buildings, 5 employees, 25 horses. It was so much.
Yeah.
And I felt lost in it.
Hmm.
So when I decided to sell and move up here to Colorado, it was really scary.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, I never felt hopeless and I never felt like I was making a wrong decision.
Hmm.
Felt it felt like the right decision and it still does.
Yeah.
I miss my whippoorwills and I miss my deer. I had a deer there that I fed oats and apples to every morning and I
Yeah.
miss her, but I
Yeah.
don't miss that. It was gobbling me up.
Yeah. There,
And
there's something about leaps of faith in the moment, and then leaps of faith looking back on them.
yes,
And I think
yes.
there's a that's just very interesting to think about that. And in the moment, oh my goodness, what am I doing? And you look back on it and go, that was absolutely the right thing I needed to do. But in
Yeah,
the
and most
moment,
of them are. I mean, if you really are making this decision from your heart, it's like I said in my intro, when you feel like something is holding you down almost underwater and you finally kick and break free of it,
yeah,
you feel lifted
yes,
till
yeah,
you get up on top of the water, right? It's this feeling of buoyancy.
100%, yeah.
And then you get up there and you look around and you're like, oh, this is
There it
so much
is.
better.
Exactly. Like, and it's like letting that breath out, when you're holding your breath and you let it out. So yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great analogy. Um, so if you could share some wisdom, now you shared so much wisdom already, but if you had three, sort of bottled it down to three pieces of wisdom that you could share with us, what would those three key pieces be?
Well, I wrote these down so
Of
I would
course.
remember. Okay. My first one is to surrender. And when you consider the word surrender, how does it feel inside of your body? Is it a societal lie that you're giving up? Because it's not. Surrender is deconstructing the rules. It's
Mm,
allowing, it's opening up. It is deconstructing that psychological narrative that you've built for yourself,
mhm,
right? When we start allowing all the masks to go away and all the identities to be peeled away. What does it feel like to just be? So that surrendering is being, just being. And how would it
mm,
feel to, while you're being, planning, to stop planning on how you're going to continue to create your story?
yeah,
And then I put to reconnect to your essence by letting go of your identity, and noticing when you think of something, is it something that's being driven by your ego or is it something that's being driven by your essence? I heard this great quote, and I should have written down, and I'll provide that. That our serenity is inversely proportional to our expectations.
Wow.
I
Yes.
thought that was really deep,
That's a great one.
and
That's a thinker. Yeah.
it is a thinker. Um, Moving into an acceptance of what is, and not an acceptance of an expectation of what should be. Quit
Mhm.
shoulding on yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And then the second one I said is from Father Richard Rohr. He says, life is a series of order, disorder, and reorder,
Hmm.
right? And so the example that comes to me is like a root-bound plant, right? It's in
Sure.
this tiny little container, and when you pick it up out of the container, it just roots, wrapped all around it, right?
Hmm.
Are you going to stay in your ordered,
Hmm.
nice, ordered little container because it's something you know?
Now.
Or are you going to let yourself be plucked out of that container and put into this bigger container?
Hmm.
And what's going to happen? Well, if you're going to struggle at first
Yeah. Yeah.
because you've got to break out of that small little space that you were in, and you
Of
have to
course.
be brave
Yeah.
and let your roots start to go. And when you do that, that builds strength, right?
Yeah.
When you're allowing those roots to go out into that new space that
Yeah.
you've created for yourself, and to recognize that there's joy in the growing. And I always love to go back to the caterpillar moving, changing
Hmm.
into a butterfly, and how in the middle it's all goo,
Yep. Absolutely.
right? So that's
Absolutely.
that order,
Yeah.
disorder, reorder.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
what life is. It's just a series of that happening.
Evolution. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
evolution. And it's hard, and then it gets
Hmm.
better, and it's hard, and then it gets better. But if we don't struggle, we're not going to grow.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the
Exactly.
last one is learn to fly.
Mm.
And that means dream, but don't make your dream something so big that it's unreachable. Have dreams that are in steps. Start small, start experimenting, but never stop dreaming. And if you
Mm.
can, surround yourself with beauty. If you can't go out and walk in a park, then can you look at a video?
Mm-hmm.
They have
Yeah.
so many wonderful drone videos now of
Oh my
nature and
goodness. Yeah.
under the ocean, and give yourself doses of that
Yeah.
instead of just doses of all of the things coming at us all of the time from our
Exactly.
society. And then
Hmm.
I'm going to end with this poem from Aaron Hansen. There is freedom waiting for you on the breezes of the sky, and you ask, what if I fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you
If you
fly?
fly. Yes. I have that on a bracelet.
I love
I
that
love that.
quote.
Yeah. 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 Oh, that's beautiful. So if you could distill all of this oh, and give us a call to action, something that you would challenge our listeners to just say, just do this, to just do this one thing. What might
Okay.
that be?
Uh, I I believe that if we can get into the practice of being still, it can change our lives.
Mm,
And so, my call to action, wherever you are on your journey, give yourself at least 1 minute of sitting with yourself in silence,
mm,
with no
yeah,
television, your phone isn't in reach,
yeah.
and find a comfortable, warm or cold space where you feel comfortable, where your body is physically comfortable and
Mm,
safe, and notice what's happening inside of your body. This is a
mm,
foreign concept to so many people because they're
mm,
shut down from the neck down.
of course.
But
Yeah.
that's where our essence lives, is in our bodies, and it's imperative that we wake them up.
And they sit in the
And
silence and that
yes,
quiet. Yeah.
even if it's a tingling behind your eyelids, notice it.
Yeah.
Notice it. And every day, give yourself at least a minute. And that's not to ask too much. It seems like a lot if you've just started doing this work.
Yeah.
And then gradually increase your time with yourself. And if a thought
Mm,
comes up, it's okay. Just let it blow away.
mm,
Come back to you and your breathing, and see if that breathing, you can wake up your heart you can feel your heartbeat.
Mm,
And what does it feel like in
yeah.
your body? So that would be
Excellent.
my that
That's a
my
call.
call to
That's a call to
action.
action. Absolutely. There you go, everybody. There's a just time to sit quietly. So I was writing. I'm working on a book, and I was writing a piece of it this morning, and it was like the ego yells, the soul whispers.
I've read that too. I love that. I think
So,
that's beautiful. That
where
is so true.
does, we have to get quiet to listen. So, um, yeah. Wow. Well, what have you got going on? We're gonna finish with what you got going on. What are some of the
Okay.
stuff that share this camera? Oh, there's only one camera. I was gonna say camera. But yeah, what have you got going on? Share with those that are
Well,
listening.
I have my coaching business is called Unbridled Connection. And I've been here a year and a half. Have a social worker that I'm partnering with in the spring as soon as the snow melts. And we're going to be providing equine assisted services. We've also found an occupational therapist that's interested in talking about weaving and collaborating. Those have been injured or suffering from illness, how we can weave the mental health into the physical rehabilitation piece. So we have a barn here um, that we're going to be partnering with to do that. I'm still doing my retreats. I go to Texas twice a year in April and October to do mindfulness retreats. And I am just passionate about teaching. And I had pretty loud voice telling me that I need to share my experiences and share my knowledge. And so I'm mentoring. I have some barns that have contacted me about they want to set up an equine therapy facility. How do they do it? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it is a business. No matter how heart centered your business
Mm,
is, how do you balance running your business, setting it up safely,
yeah.
finding the appropriate horses, and marrying all that together and being successful? I think the statistic is not good. It's
Yeah.
like within 2 years, most equine therapy facilities close.
Yeah.
And so, how do you stay open? How do you have a thriving horse
Mm,
population? How do you have a thriving client population? How do you bring therapists together?
hmm
What kind of rules are you going to have in place to keep their horses safe?
Yeah.
Equine welfare is huge for me. And
Sure.
so that's one of the things I love
hmm
doing is teaching. And then I
hmm
wrote my book,
Oh, excellent. Oh, thank you.
Unbridled
Excellent.
Connection, and it is a coffee table book.
Oh,
It
lovely.
has
Oh,
did write, of course I wrote the pages right, but it has pictures, and then it has some of my very favorite, most inspiring quotes
nice.
that
Nice.
accompany each of the pictures. And my goal here, I actually don't make any money on my books, but my goal was to get them into as many hands as I could because I want anyone who opens the book, and even if they just read one page, that's their moment of stillness,
Good point. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it speaks to their heart
Yeah.
what I've included, the
Yeah.
quotes. So
Yeah.
there's nature,
Nice.
there's children and horses, and then at the very end of the book, I've asked some of my former clients to
Mm,
write their own stories about how horses have changed
oh,
their
nice.
lives.
Nice.
So
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we will put a link up to that book for sure,
thank you.
in our summary. Kelly, I'm going to take some time and absorb all this. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for having the heart of courage to share
Thank
I
you.
your story, and so much wisdom that yeah, I'm going to take some time and watch this again, and just sort of just let it all melt in, and uh into that spider web of,
Yes, I
as
love that.
you were talking there, yeah, earlier, and it's like I just pictured that spider web, and it's not, when you say that, I think our first thought is humans. But as you were saying that, but no, it's everything. And
It's
everything from
everything.
spiders, which have spider webs, to trees, to clouds, to everything is in those spider webs. We are a piece of it. So
Yes.
that
Eh,
just sort of, as you were talking, that just sort of jumped into my mind and just like, no, it's
yeah.
everything. So
And it's beautiful and it's soft and it's safe.
yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You
Thank you
are
so
welcome.
much for being here
Thank you,
today and
Linda.
taking this step to do it and inspire us forward. Thank you all that are here or those that are listening to this later on. We will post this and a summary in a few days. There's Lynn that's been here. Thank you, Lynn, for being here. And our
Thank you.
next one is March 7th. We might have a little surprise for that one, but we are still booking that. So we'll get our next speakers up soon. If anybody's ever interested in telling their story, their inspiring story, please get in touch with me. We are booking into May and June right now. Had a lot of people come forward, so I'm so excited that this is just continuing and we are inspiring and we are creating this community of explorers into the unknown. And
Yes, thank you.
I love that. So with that being said, thank you all. And I'm just gonna